All right, everybody, welcome back to Liars Pacifist. Joined for another episode of the podcast. And again, this is, I failed to mention in the prior one yesterday, it's kind of the pre-season launch, but the official season 2 launch of the podcast. Had on Cydonia yesterday, and today I have from the Bay Area, and I believe, is that San Francisco?
Yes, sir.
Yes. All right, good. Just wanted to make sure. But from San Francisco, I have Gillsaw's Joel Gillsaw on the podcast this morning to talk about his music and everything that came into why and how Gillsaw came to be. Glad you're on, man. How you doing?
Dude, thanks for the invite. Thanks for having me on.
No problem.
You were one of the first to reach out and get something scheduled, and so I appreciate the early support. Music industry is tough, and so whenever you have somebody that's willing to jump in and kind of help foster you along the way, you deserve all the appreciation I can give you. So I appreciate it. Will, looking forward to this conversation for sure.
Yeah, same, man. And that goes both ways too, by the way. It's I help you out and you help me out. It's kind of like I treat it like a family kind of community kind of thing with the podcast. I have a really good group of people that are behind me and support me, and a lot of groups that I'm in on Facebook that we're always sending things to each other saying, hey, check this guy, this band out. Like with you, I sent JT your info and for Brett Beyond the Breakdown, because I think you and him would have a really good time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, man, that's why I'm doing this, apart from just being real, passionate about music and just loving talking about it. And just being a guy that helps get word out, man. So
Love
I feel
I'm doing JT's podcast next weekend, I think it is.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that chat for sure. So yeah, man, appreciate it as always. And like, I consider us all in the same tribe now. So this would be great. So
I agree. And I'm just going to dive in, man. And I'm going to hit you with the first question and just say, Gillsaw, how did it start? What was the vision early on, or the concept for Gillsaw, and how did it ultimately, kind of take shape?
So it's weird how inspiration strikes when you just least expect it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a big believer in being in tune with your environment. And so when that inspiration strikes, listen to it. And so I've been a drummer in different, tribute bands and cover bands and whatnot. And I've been around the music industry from like a music royalty standpoint, executive producer standpoint. And I always had this inkling of like, there's more that I want to produce. There's more that I want to push out there. And it just really just came to a head in a pretty quick moment of, I'm going to sit down and actually write some ideas down. And I always start with drums. I'm a drummer. That's my primary instrument. And all the other bands I'm in, I'm the drummer. And so I always start with creating sounds on the drum kit. And I like to create more of like a guitar riff sound on the drum kit is what I kind of strive for. And so then over time, I've created files full of these sounds on the drum kit. And then I slowly just started, hey, what would happen if I started building on top of these, layering on top of these? Like, what could I turn this into? And you fast forward, and next thing you know, I'm like actually pulling together songs. And I have a very strong passion for that late 80s, early 90s industrial sound, which helps in some of that approach to the music. And so it just happened, man. It happened organically. And so I said, I want to just throw wings on this thing and let it fly, and let's see where it goes. And that's where I'm at now. So,
well, man, I mean, that's very kind of. I love the spontaneity of that. It sounds like, and just like you're saying, the organic way that it came about. It doesn't sound like there's any amount of pressure on yourself for it happening. You just kind of let it be born.
That's it.
And that's kind of the feel I get from your Risen when I was listening to it. And I don't think I necessarily worded it this way in the review, but I kind of like implied it. There's some people I've talked to about industrial music that say that to them, they like it, but they feel like in some weird way that it kind of cages itself in. And whenever I hear that from somebody, I kind of scratch my head, and because I think the whole idea of industrial, it's kind of got like a punk rock attitude as far as it doesn't shackle itself to really anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's expansive, and it just goes where it's going to go, because typically, the people that make it, it's very DIY, especially that real early stuff, like the drum machines, the samples, like you're saying, they would take like a freaking blender or something from like their kitchen and bring it into their studio and like put whatever in the thing and just like destroy the thing just to get some kind of weird sound, and then throw it in the track as a stem or whatever.
That's it.
Or, and so when I hear that they feel like it's caged in, I'm like, that's so far from the truth. If you want to talk about something being put in a box like that and not allowed to kind of be expanded and just not have boundaries, you could kind of look at, like some of the pop, or a lot of the pop music today, even, a lot of the hard, the rock and stuff like that, especially from the industry standpoint, is so confined.
Sure.
So industrial is so far from boxed in, man. Like that's probably to me the most DIY and expressive kind of like harder music that exists. You know what I mean?
I agree completely. And so there were a couple prevailing themes that kind of came into my creation of Gillsaw. One was I wanted it to start as a solo project, which it has. My vision is it will not remain a solo project, but whenever you are creating something with a group of individuals, like I have other projects with other musicians where I'm the drummer and I'm providing the input from the drum standpoint. That is a constant back and forth of negotiation of what do we actually want to pull together. And so what you end up doing with that is you end up like sanding down the edges, right, to kind of meet in this middle, and it ends up producing something that's maybe slightly generic, right? Because you got to have a lot of people who are completely risk averse in order to pull something off that's really different. So I know as a solo artist, like the only thing I'm accountable for is me, right? Yeah. And so I can take my creativity wherever I want. So that was one. The second two things were the music that I'm creating with Gillsaw definitely has industrial undertones to it. I'm not afraid to break the mold from that even as well. And so, but the thing I love about industrial music is they break the mold of what constitutes an instrument. And so my songs always start with an acoustic drum kit. Now they morph from there to create whatever sound is that actually gets in the final product. But along the way, here's a great example. I have it on my desk now. There's a song, my second song that is going to be released. It's called Siren Comes. It was released in early February. There's a prevailing sound for that entire song that is like a cryptic. It sounds almost like a chain rattling type of sound, right? And it's on I think it's on the one throughout the entire song. What that is these two Altoid tins being smashed together and then manipulated, and in a way that made it kind of eerie, kind of like offsetting.
Yeah.
And so now tell me, who defines Altoid tins as an instrument? I do, and that's all that matters, right? And so so when you talk about throwing shit in a blender and seeing how it sounds, that's exactly what I have done with a lot of this. The third thing that I wanted to mention with that was I'm a huge fan of progressive metal, and
it's like Dream Theater, stuff like that.
Dream Theater, the big ones: Dream Theater, Meshuggah, Gojira. Yeah. Then you get into like the Devin Townsends of the world. And
I love Devin Townsend, dude. That dude is so awesome.
We could take the rest of this podcast and have me just fanboy on Devin Townsend.
Yeah, same dude.
It's so just amazing, right? Like his sound, he comes up with just where the hell does he get these ideas and this creativity? So he breaks the mold on what the hell a song is, right? And what a genre is.
Yeah.
And so I love that. So I've tried to take all of those elements and bake them into what it is that I'm doing. Now, like, I don't strive to be any other band. I'm not trying to match my sound with anybody else's. I want to be like the best version of Gillsaw and not, a microwave version of somebody else that existed. But anyway, those are the kind of the big thematic influences that have come into the music that I've created. So
I love it, dude. You definitely, everything you're saying is everything that I took away from the song and kind of the identity that Gillsaw has. And I love that you're so open to, as it's been touched on throughout this whole, almost 11 minutes now, just letting it go where it goes. You're talking about opening up to not being the solo thing and just taking other people in to, contribute, and that you're not leaving it to be just that industrial kind of sound.
that's right.
Like, it could go like a melodic route, sound a little bit more, I don't know, like a Gravity Kills song, I guess, a little bit more, I want to say just less noise, but not like noise as in things that serve no purpose, but just, and I'm excited for that. I think that's really great. And I wish more music did that now, even the commercial mainstream stuff, where's the risk taking in you? Yeah. And to your point about your Altoid thing, I don't know if you've seen the interview, but Steven Tyler was talking, I think it was from Aerosmith, was talking with Howard Stern, and he was saying, do you want to know what that sound is at the start of Sweet Emotion, where it's like that?
Yep, I know exactly what it is. Yeah,
it was a sugar packet.
Oh, really? Nice.
Wasn't it a sugar packet, or and then something broke, and he wanted to leave that in.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Instead of taking that out. And I'm like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like stuff like that is so sparse and few, uncommon anymore. Just let things go where they're going to go. Everything's supposed to sound perfect. Everything's supposed to sound polished, because let's just be honest, they're not going to play Risen on a commercial radio station, right?
No, they're not.
That's what's so great about it.
Yeah. It's funny. One of the things, like, a lot of music becomes very overproduced right now, right? And so I try to strike that balance of not making everything like align perfectly in a song, so it just sounds robotic, right? And even with the sound levels, right? A lot of songs will just, like, if you look at the sound bar, it's just a rectangle bar, 4 cross, right? It's just nothing but sound. And I don't want that. I want gaps of sound in my song. There's, and I can't remember which one on the EP, which song it is. I'm running triplets on my drum kit, and this one little part, I kind of speed up the triplet a little bit, and so I kind of go off timing. And I heard it, and as a drummer, you're like, get really anal about that stuff. And I'm actually going to keep that in there. I can easily like splice it out, but I like it because it shows there's a human element to this, and it's not a machine generated song.
Exactly.
It's actually human here, and that includes like the little minute fuck ups that go along the way.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's important. Another thing, on Risen, there's a certain sound that happened that was an absolute mistake, and it. And when I heard it, I was like, oh man, I got to edit that out. And then I was like, wait a second, that is actually a really badass sound. And so then I captured that sound and I put it multiple times throughout the song. And now it's like, it's a key part to that song where I'm like, I love that sound that comes through. And maybe nobody will ever notice it, and that's fine. But anyway, yeah. So I think those imperfections are important. Just to remind yourself and everybody that this is actually human generated music. So.
Yeah, because you actually touched on something I was going to bring up. That's another thing that people associate with industrial music is they think it's just machines that people are using to do it. They don't think that it's live instruments. They don't think there's any acoustic instruments in there. Sure, you might be taking them and running them through a program, and manipulating it and stuff, but that's industrial. It's unconventional, And
I've got one song that
go ahead.
Coming out. These are the primary drums in the song. And so like, tell me, is that industrial? I don't know. To me, it is now, right?
Anything's industrial, honestly.
It is, that's right. So like that's not machine generated. You see this drum back here, I just picked that up, and I was down in the Joshua Tree area. I always go down there once a year to kind of like recenter my thinking. And that's a Native American drum that I picked up at a pawn shop, and I saw it's like got sheepskin, right? Like it's really just authentic. And I heard, I was like, that's a very unique sound, and I don't know where I'm going to use it, but that's going to absolutely show up in a Gillsaw song somewhere, right? On top of that, I'm also going to have like computerized synth stuff on top, so it's just a nice like mix of, it's a pretty interesting stew that gets pulled together. So
yeah, I mean, that's my love for industrial, man. Exactly why I love it so much. It's like, so what's the point in saying that you're an artist or musician or whatever if you're risk averse, if that's the right way to put it? As like you don't want to do the risks. Creating shouldn't be confined. You know what I mean? And it shouldn't just be this singular thing, like you're talking about, like singular path. Because in my mind, I don't think creating is creating when you're confined like that.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's organic. I don't think it's like a natural kind of thing. And you hear it. You could hear it, and you can almost even see it, in a performance, like in a video or whatever. Which, by the way, I'm excited to see that video for Risen now that we're talking about music videos. I'm like, okay, this is definitely going to be very DIY done.
Yeah.
And I really want to see the outcome of it. Yeah, I'm like, 5 days.
I'm excited about that one. It's funny. I want to definitely touch on that in a second.
Okay.
So let's put a pin in that one. But I want to also go into what you're talking about with the creativity. I'm a firm believer in letting some of your subconscious be in control. And so if you try to do everything that you're creating through your consciousness, then you're filtering that through way too much logic. And so that stifles creativity. So for me, it's like, where the hell did that fucking idea come from? I don't know. Let's get it out, right? Like, let's tease that out a bit and see what comes of it. And maybe nothing will come of it. But to me, it's that subconscious that if you can really tap into some of those like unfiltered ideas and not suppress them, it's just interesting what'll come out. With that, what I've found is once you give your mind permission to think in those ways, to be creative, to let the creative energy flow, then it gives permission to the rest of that energy to come out as well. And so like what I found is once I tap into it, then it's just like a flood, right? And so, it's fun, man. But sometimes I'm just like, how the hell is that in me, man? Like, that's because I'm a really boring guy in general. And some of the stuff I come up with musically, I'm just like, that's crazy that was in me, but it is. So
it's funny that you say you're a boring guy, because I say that about myself all the time. Like, I'll have somebody on this and they'll ask me about my day-to-day life. I'm like, oh, well, I work, I'm a husband and a dad. Obviously I love music and I'm passionate about it. Don't make it, of course. But, and then I'm like, aside from that, I'm boring. I stay at home a lot of the time. I'm doing like prep for podcast things, I'm like doing up little flyers and posters for it and stuff. So I'm like, I don't consider myself all that interesting, if I'm honest. So I get your comment about saying that you're boring. It's like, well, I'm just a guy. I make music, and
dude, that's it. Like it's, I think I hit that stage in life where I know what I enjoy and I know where I want to put my energy, and the rest of it can straight fuck off, right? And so, yeah, man, like I'm very content with who I am and what I do, and it's not for everybody, and that's okay, man. Like it's. This thing that I have with that is, there's 100,000 songs that get pushed into Spotify on a day-to-day basis. And like, okay, if you don't like this, cool. There's 999,000 other songs to go and choose from. Right. So like, go find another one. Right. And so anyway, so for me, I've just really purged a lot of distraction out of my life. And then that allows me to put my life energy into the things that matter to me. And like, what else do you want in life, man? Like, cool, you get to do the shit that you want to do. That sounds awesome, right? Like, family, and like, and your passions, your hobbies, right? Like, what else do you need?
Yeah, I say don't rob yourself of those passions.
No, man.
In those hobbies, explore them. If they run their course, they run their course. Go discover something else. And just keep that process open and alive.
That's it.
That's exactly. Keep your mind sharp.
Dude, we get one shot at this thing called life, right? And so, I strive to have those closing moments of my own story to have me looking back saying like, okay, I did the things that I wanted to do, right? Instead of, damn it, I wish I would have taken these chances, or I wish I wouldn't have spent so much time on these things that didn't matter. And so anyway, it's just kind of a life philosophy that I have.
Yeah. I'm similar in that, I sat on this podcast idea for maybe 8 months before it actually happened. Just friend of mine saying, you're really good with music and talking about it. You're really good, when we meet bands that we go see live, and just talk to those people, treating them like humans and stuff. And if you want a little insight, just for a minute on the podcast's birth or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't want to make it about me or anything, but so a band I love a lot came back, and they got back together, and I had my moment in my front room where I was freaking out about it, cheering. My son's looking at me like I'm crazy, and they're a new metal band from the early 2000s called Simon Says, and I mention them almost every other podcast, but it just kind of goes with the story. But so that they came back, and then I was talking with my buddy because he introduced me to them. Way back in like 2002 or so, I think it was. And then that's kind of where the whole idea for this started to really get serious, because I'm like, I wonder if I could get in contact with, with like their singer or somebody in the band, or if there's someone that represents them. And then JT, who you're going to be on the podcast with next weekend, I think sometime later that day, or maybe a couple of days later, said that he's going to start a podcast. And I'm like, okay, that just sells it, man. You're like, he's doing it, I'm going to do it. And then I reached out to the singer of Simon Says, and, he's like, hell yeah, dude, I'm way down for doing a podcast. And so that was just the birth of it. And I'm like, I was just sick of just second guessing if I could, You're in your own way with the majority of things in life.
100%.
And when you get out of your way and you just do it, I mean, a little more over a year into this, and there's been a lot of growth, I feel like, and it's all been organically gained.
Yeah. It's funny. I talked about gatekeepers in the industry, but in between our ears is like the most intense gatekeeper of all, right?
Yeah.
Like our brains want to keep us safe. And so it really tries to throttle back risk taking. And so, yeah, man, like that's the thing. It was between the ears, man. That's where sometimes the biggest asshole lives, right? And so
it's like, shut up, brain,
Yeah, man, that's it. Go sit in the corner, bro. I got shit to do. So, yeah, man, good for you for pushing through that, for sure. So where'd the name come from? I got to ask. Liars Pacifists.
So you're going to have a laugh with this, I think. So you know what I mentioned just, I think, maybe minutes ago, that I've never done my own music. Well, for a brief little moment in my life, back in about 2000 and early 2023, I told JT, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to put a page. I'm going to call it Liars Pacifist, and I'm going to think about doing music. And he was excited as hell for that, because he's like, dude, do music, because I write lyrics, but I never do anything with them.
Yeah.
And so initially, Liars Pacifist was a band, right? Yeah, and Liars Pacifist, like the name, was a take on how there's a lot of, as far as like challenging things in life, challenging people's views, challenging like laws or government or things like that. Everybody just wants to pacify what's going on and not say something about it.
Yeah.
And so you're pacifying the liar, that's like spreading like misinformation or whatever. So that's kind of what Liars Pacifist stands for from a standpoint of a musical entity. But I kept the name for a podcast because I'm like, you know, I think it's still kind of cool, you know, sounding. And I thought about changing it, you know, a couple of times way early on, but I'm like, you know what, screw that. I'm keeping the name. I don't care. I like what I think it stands for. So that's what Liars Pacifist was.
I love it, man. No, that's great. That's a great backstory. I think the name definitely holds because that's really what you're trying to do through podcast, right? Is kind of scrub off the facade and get into the root of it all, right? And so, I think that's great, man. And I guarantee there's no other Liars Pacifists out there. So,
so far I haven't found it.
Yeah, that's awesome. You branded well, so
but getting shifting course back to Gillsaw, I want to ask you and get a little bit deeper into the songwriting process. I mentioned in the review for Risen that my take on it was breaking away from societal constraints, or like even like if it's like a religion thing, you know, breaking that tie of like, you know, kind of feeling like you're trapped and ascending above all of that and just letting yourself exist freely, you know, kind of, I believe was kind of like how I worded my take on Risen and what, you know, you were writing about. So lyrically, musically, or whatever, how deep could you go as far as like how you want to describe that process in a more complete kind of way?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for the question. This one I will slowly tease out. So so first of all, when I'm writing lyrics, I try to strike a balance between putting everything out there in the open versus being like hyper cryptic, right? Where it's like nobody could possibly know what that song's about, or I'm telling you everything that the song's about, right? I try to find that space in between. And so Risen is the third song on a 6-song EP that I have. I'm various stages of completion.
Right.
And so let me tell the story of the EP that the EP tells, and then you can see where Risen kind of fits into that. And it definitely is directionally what you were talking about. So the EP starts with a man who is working a lighthouse. He's working a lighthouse, keeping ships safe from crashing into the island that he works at. And it kind of goes into him realizing that nobody really cares, right? He thinks he's doing these things, but he's not getting like the thanks or the validation from society that what he's doing matters. And so he starts to look for that validation elsewhere. And that's where Risen comes in. He conjures up this deity in his head. So trying to find that kind of spiritual outlet that he can latch onto. So that's where Risen comes in. And then the next song, the next single I released as well is called Siren Comes. Right. And what this song is about is, so in like the Odyssey, there's these sirens that sing these beautiful songs and they cause these ships to go and crash into those islands, right?
Right.
And so they're really evil beings, but they come across beautiful enchanted being, right? And so I thought of what would happen if one of those sirens actually broke free and came to where this guy was working the lighthouse and actually like tried to possess him. And so the siren visits him at night, right? And so and Risen's kind of doing all of this in the background because he's evil, right? And so the siren keeps coming to try to steal this man's soul. So that's a song about seduction and how people look for pathways in seduction to go and try to find that value in life. And then the next song is about Risen convincing this person to actually take his life, right? And do so in like a really awful way of actually a self-burial. And so so that song gets kind of dark, kind of heavy. That's the one actually where I use my bongos for it. And then in the closing song, what you learn is this person actually was, all of this was a figment of their imagination. And the real story was, this is a person that society had beaten down. They had started doing the things in life that they thought were important. They thought that mattered. And everywhere they turned, society just told them they weren't good enough, right? You don't matter. You're not good enough. we're the gatekeepers to what's important in the world, and you're not getting through the gates. And so we try to find these outlets on how to find self-value. The biggest outlet is drug use, right? Heavy fentanyl use. And so you end up finding that this is actually a person who was kind of a vagrant living down in by the Salton Sea in California, which is a really nomadic area in California. And he ends up dying from a drug overdose in the ditch kind of beside the sea. And so it's really like a kind of a sad closure to the story. But it's kind of a horror story, right? Like, but not overtly. It's not demonic. Right? Like I've had so many people say, like, this is devil music. And it's like, I've got the mask here. And so this is the Risen mask. And yeah, that looks demonic, right? That looks, but like, it's not the devil, right? This is actually a mask I got at Amazon. And so like, so anyway, and I get it. People like a black and white world, and so they want to dismiss things and move on. So I get it. No harm, no foul. But anyway, so that's kind of the story. And so Risen is a piece of that story. So anyway, so there you go. There's the full picture.
No, dude, that's a great backstory to everything. I love all that. That paints a vivid picture in my mind. And I actually want to say that I kind of take away a little bit of what you're wanting to highlight, kind of like even like a mental health kind of aspect of it. Yeah, you know, like myself and JT were way about that on our podcast. You know, we love highlighting that when we hear it in an artist's music, and just saying how much we appreciate that, because, you know, we all go through things, you know, and sadly not everybody talks about it. And that's when these horrible things happen, either by self-harm or that the world outside your door, you know. So dude, that's way cool that that's an aspect of it.
It's a huge, I'm glad that you touch on that, because it is a huge element to it, is the mental health, because, you know, there's such a stigma with mental health, right? And so, and, you know, for everybody, but speaking as a man, I know, you know, growing up, it's about like rub some dirt on it, and like, suck it up, buttercup, and get back into the game. And so you learn how to really suppress, right? Like, oh no. And so, but that shit's going to come out somehow, some way. It's going to come out through self-destruction, self-harm. It's going to come out through, you know, all of these avenues that are not healthy. And so, like, if we can find ways of embracing, like, actually, like, purging this out on our own, and, you know, with those around us in our tribe, you know, just like, what better way to live than to just allow yourself to be vulnerable in those moments and say, like, hey bro, like, I'm dealing with some shit and I don't know what it is. Like, can we grab a cup of coffee and chew on this? Right. Like, I need to kind of get this explored out of me. Right. And sometimes it's just having somebody listen. Right. And that's what matters most. So anyway, so yeah, this is all about like the societal pressures and how sometimes those like cause people to internalize pain and suffering into a way that comes out in these other avenues that of destruction, self-destruction. So
yeah, no, I love it, man. That's you touch on some very good points as far as, like, you know, men and how we deal with, you know, our internal dialogue and just, you know, the traumas and everything. You know, my background's a lot of like parental abuse that I went through from my father, right? So that's never something that just goes away. You know, I'm dealing with it still, you know, and it's long-term effects, stuff like that. But, you know, opening myself up and talking about it, and just, you know, seeing other people starting to do the same, you know, it shows me hope as far as the world healing and these people that carry around all this baggage, you know. Because, you know, the whole thing about men aren't supposed to cry, you know. You know, if you get told, you know, if you're, you know, your folks are old fashioned, or if they just happen to be that kind of person, as far as like your father figure or your father in your life, you know, like you said, rubbing dirt on it or sucking it up, keeping it in, kind of thing, you know. Just cry anyways, man. Talk about what's hurting you. Talk about, you know, scars that you got, whether or not they're visible or internal. Just get it out, because it does suck to get judged for being vulnerable, but at the end of the day, you might still find yourself feeling better for having done it anyways. So why not do it?
Dude, it's funny, like sometimes we don't want to be human, and we don't have a choice, man. Like, we're all human. And so what that means is we get to have all the different bouquet of emotions that come with being a human. Anger and frustration and sadness and worry and happiness and joy, and like the whole thing is part of the story, part of the journey, right? And so, we can't just like segment out and say, like, here are the good emotions that I want to feel, and here are the bad ones that I don't want to feel or acknowledge. And to me, that's where this music is rebellious, because, and it's funny, it's rebelling against society and some of the norms in society, but not in a way of like, fuck you, I'm going to burn down your cities. It's more of like, fuck you, I'm going to take care of my mind. Fuck you, I'm going to be vulnerable. Fuck you, I'm going to explore the things that are inside of me without you gatekeeping. And like, so to me, there's a huge element of rebellion in that. And, industrial music has always been about rebellion against the norms of society. And so anyway, so I think that this is a nice little avenue into that kind of rebellious attitude of the music genre. So
yeah, man, just 100%. I think that's the world needs a lot more of that right now, just pushing back, because as you know, there's a lot of the of late, the last couple of years, just groups wanting to have like this singular kind of thinking. Like, everybody should fall in line with this, that, or whatever's over there across the pond or something. That's not that, to me, that's not the direction that's going to be beneficial to everybody as a whole. Is being like a hive mind. That's not going to be living. That's not going to be being an individual. You kind of take that individual of yourself away when that's what you're doing. So yeah. Rebellious music, that punk rock attitude, or that rock attitude, or just in general, it's just like, let it be something that you explore.
It's like, you see a lot of it with the echo chambers that we build around ourselves, right? Where, hey, I have this ideology in life, and so I'm going to surround myself with just people who think in that way. And then there's like psychological safety in that, because I don't have to now choose what to think. They tell me what to think. Awesome, right? So critical thinking is kind of something that's drying up. You just hear people that spout talking points from whatever their echo chamber is. And I'm talking about like all over the spectrum. There's not one group that doesn't do this while others do. And so, and I'm a human as well. So I fall victim to that, where I'm like, oh shit, I'm not having original thoughts here. I'm like thinking along the path of what somebody else has told me to think. And so, and that's the thing that scares me most, is like that homogenizing of thought inside of these echo chambers. And where, what does that dystopian future look like, where, we've become really mindless. We've become mindless, but we've become like separated. So we have these like really intense pod thinking, and, the in group and out group type of thinking. And then you kind of factor in the next dystopian level of what AI is going to do from that.
I was going to touch on that.
Yeah, really drying up like creative processes, right? And so not only do people will people not have the liberty to think creatively, they won't have the skill sets because they're not used to it. Oh, I've got this idea. Let me go into a prompt on some AI system and have that spit out the thing that, oh, cool, that created the set of lyrics or that drawing or that poem or that whatever, fill in the blank. I didn't have to do anything creatively for that. The machine did it for me. So what does that mean as a society? How many kids are going to grow up with blank sheets of paper and a stack of coloring pencils to just generate ideas through pictures?
Yeah.
Like how much of that's just going to be online with prompts? And so I don't want to be like the old guy, like screaming at the clouds, right? But like, there's some of this where I'm less optimistic about what's to come, and so, but also I think that also fuels my passion to really push my own creativity, and hopefully, I don't proclaim to have this like grandiose view where I'm going to influence a lot of people, but if I can influence some, right? If I can find that tribe that I provide some influence or inspiration for, then like, man, that's a life well lived. So,
yeah, I was on a podcast yesterday with a friend of mine that called "This Is Me," and we were talking about. There's a post that was made. No, it wasn't a post actually. Sorry. She was on with JT actually, and they were talking about like view counts or follows and likes on Facebook or Instagram, and how it could kind of get in your head and get you down when you just see your numbers being like low or whatever. And so I chimed in and I said something to the effect of, think of it this way: 7 people subscribe to your Facebook or your YouTube or your Instagram or whatever. Might sound like a small number, but picture in your mind those 7 people being seated in your room wherever you do your podcast or whatever, or make your music. That's still a lot of people that are there to see what you're doing and hear your opinion or hear what you're making, right?
Yes.
And then just the other day, I took that further, framed it, and I'm like, now take that 7 people or subscribers or whatever, and let's say you have around like myself around 300 on Facebook, and put that inside your home now. Mm-hmm. You're going to be packed to the walls.
Yeah, I know.
That might sound like a small number compared to like thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions that some of these other influencers or whatever might have. But in all honesty, in reality, that's not small. No, and I say that that's success too. So like for Gillsaw, like what was it, around 300 or 400 followers on Instagram or something like that, or is it more?
Yeah, I think I'm over 1,000 on Facebook. Like 300-400 on Instagram. What I mean, it's like not.
Yeah, I mean, like my whole point with that is that I don't let that drive me doing this.
No.
Like, yeah, sure, cool to see the numbers grow, but if they kind of level out and stay at one level for a time, whatever. I'm not doing this dependent on the numbers going up or down. I do it because I love it, And so, go ahead.
I would much rather have 100 people listening to my material, be it a podcast or an album, that it really resonates with, than having some vapid number of followers that really are not engaged. Most of them will be bots anyway, right? And so so my give a shit factor for that is as close to 0 as you can get. The challenge for me is what I'm trying to do is find the people who this resonates with and, kind of bring them into the fold. Right. And so, and that's all I care about, man. Like, and that's why you'll see like people who will comment on like, oh, this is, devil music. Devil music seems to be the thing that they get a lot of, right? It's like, okay, man, not for you, move along. Right. Like, I don't give a shit, man. I can't tell you how much I don't give a shit about if you don't like it. Like, cool, dude, go find what you like. Like, not for you. I'm trying to find the people that this resonates with. And that's all I give a shit about. Like, it's not a numbers game. I'm not in this for fame and fortune. It's a passion. I enjoy it. And I want to find the people that it speaks to. And like, let's make a tribe and have a lot of fun. Right? So.
Exactly, dude. You brought up that whole devil thing a couple of times in this conversation. I just when I saw that, when that got posted up, I couldn't help but just sit there and laugh when I saw that little just quotated little thing from some guy on the internet. And I'm just like, that's as much as that is subtle, it's also very deliberate and blunt to whoever said that you would include that on the press release for the reviews that you were getting. And it's like, hey, look, check this out. Just so you can see that I'm not only putting things on here for people that liked it.
Yeah.
Here's somebody that just said that it's devil music. Here, have a laugh.
That's exactly it, man. Like that's exactly, like I said, that's the nice thing of being like self-funded and being a solo artist, and the setting up of this is like, dude, I can do whatever the hell I want, right? And so like I don't have to worry about like I don't have some executive producer that's going to come in and say like, hey, wait, I don't think you're spending my money the correct way, right? Like, it's whatever I want. So I can politely tell people to go fuck themselves, and that feels great. So
yeah, or like some industry guy from a label or whatever saying, hey, Joel, clean up your beard and cut your hair because we need you to look like Nickelback or something. Or I don't dislike Nickelback. I actually listen to them. But
by the way, Nickelback is really fun to play on the drums. I will just let you know. Like I love playing Nickelback song on the drums. They are a lot of fun.
No, I could agree. He's actually the guy in that band is a really great drummer too.
He is, legit. Like they're great musicians, and I know
they are.
Like they're loved to be hated. That's fine. Like I get it. Like they're like crying in the big piles of money. So like I don't think they give a shit either. I watched actually a documentary on Nickelback.
I did too.
Yeah, that was really good, right? And it kind of gives you a different view of just how toxic the industry is in society in general, right? And so like, good on them, man. Like laugh all the way to the bank. It's kind of like Lars. People will dig on Lars as a drummer. Maybe he's not the most technical drummer in the world, and like I'll play some Metallica songs and I'm like, I don't know what the hell Lars was thinking on this fill, right? But also like he's got what $300 million in the bank, right? He sells out arenas. Like I don't think he gives a shit about anybody's opinion, right? And so anyway, it's I think you got to have fun. You got to have fun with the trolls in the world. You can't let them get under your skin, and
Yeah, I mean, touching on the Lars thing and then the Nickelback thing a little bit more, just to really frame that. I'm gonna say I'm guilty every now and then of having a jab at Lars.
For sure.
Everybody knows what his shortcomings are as a drummer, right?
Yes, man.
It's exactly what you're saying. He doesn't need to care, and he's said it before multiple times. Recently enough, too. He's like, what more do I need to prove?
I know, man. That's exactly it. Hey, listen, even in my compliment to Lars right there, I gave digs into him about like shitty fills and so like you just can't help but dig a little bit. I've seen videos of him doing some of his double kicks in this latest tour. Like they're just sloppy as shit. They sound like a popcorn maker, right? But like, dude, good on him, man. Like he is significantly more successful than I could have ever dreamed to be, right? So like who gives a shit about my opinion, man? Like, that's cool.
And the band's self-aware to Lars too. Like they all pick on him and he picks on them,
That's exactly it, man.
Then the Nickelback thing, I don't know if you've seen the shirt that they have, and I think they still sell it on their website about what if you're a fan or you're not a fan. It says something like that, and then it says either way, one of these makes you a liar. It's like either you're a fan or you're I can't remember exactly the wording, but it's something to the effect of
either you're a fan or you're a liar type of deal. Right. Yeah. That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Dude, it's great because it's like those are guilty pleasures, man. Like those songs are like, man, they're surface level. There's no like deep meaning to it, right? Like that song that they have Rockstar. Like dude, it's the lyrics are so incredibly cheesy. But it's so much fun to play, man. And I will still crank that damn song and be like, fuck, I hope nobody hears me cranking this song, but this is a really good tune, man. And I love to play that one on the drums as well. So like, man, embrace it, right? Like, I don't want to be a troll. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the nature, man. I mean, it's you can dig all you want on successful artists, but at the end of the day, man, it's like, okay, you don't like me, but look at where I am.
Yeah, that's it.
But
when you think about this, like I can actually tie this back to my EP, because you look at those trolls in society, or the toxicity of society that's elevated at those levels, right? When you're talking about Nickelback or Lars, but that attitude of being a critical finger pointer prevails even to people who are not in the spotlight, right? Like the people in society who are just living their lives, man. Like they get criticized and they think they're doing the right things, and then society's telling them that they're not good enough, they're not worthy, right? And so like, so yeah, this happens everywhere. It's just it's on a much bigger stage with, you know, Nickelback and Lars, right? But that to me is just kind of the society that we live in. And you know, hey, listen, we all fall prey to it too. Like none of us are perfect. Some of us are on the giving side of that. Some of us are on the receiving side of that. At some point in time, all of us are, right? And so just kind of try to be self-aware of it, I guess.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I dig at Taylor Swift all the time. Like
Sure.
I'm like, I don't get why she's so popular, but at the same time, when I take a step back and look at it, I also do get why she's so popular.
Yep.
You know, so it's like
funny. There's a band, you probably have heard of them, Sleep Token, and
oh yeah, I actually have a shirt.
So do I. I love Sleep Token, and they're massive, but they're people, especially inside the metal community, right? Metal community's got a lot of very strong opinions, right, and very like nuanced niches.
Oh yeah,
Like, this is the nuanced niche that matters. Everything else sucks. And so there's a lot of people who are like, I don't get the Sleep Token and I don't understand. And it's like, well, stop listening to them. I don't like go find the thing in the niche that you like and listen to that. Why do you have to dig at Sleep Token just because they have millions of followers? I don't get the hate. Like to me, their music is not genre specific.
It's not, man. It crosses so many different thresholds.
So many different, right?
Yeah.
Like, and their drummer is amazing, and his voice is amazing, and like I just enjoy them. And they're a band that I can sit and listen to with my wife, right? And she's not a metal person, but she's like, oh, I really like this band. Now there's some songs where she'd be like, I don't really care for that song. Okay, that's fine. We can fast forward to that one. But like, I just think that they're an excellent band, but they, you know, people like to poke and whatever. It's fine. Human nature, I guess. So.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that Sleep Token's different enough where they kind of challenge those people's minds that are wanting kind of like things to be super similar all the time. You know, it kind of makes them a little uncomfortable when they hear something that doesn't do like a linear kind of path, right? You know, I can't remember which song it is, but I think it's off of the newest album from Sleep Token where there's like that real jazzy section in it.
Yeah.
You know, and like it really just takes you for a spin, and it's just so random, and you're just like kind of like, what? But you know, what's funny is like some of my favorite songs from them are the ones that have like a real poppy kind of rhythm or just like undertone to it. You know,
yeah,
like,
for sure.
They do that line between genres so efficiently, man.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're amazing artist, and I just really I enjoy listening to them, and I really do like how they do blend that line of genres. And like you, I think some of my favorite songs on their albums are the ones that are a little more on the poppy side and like auto-tuned and whatever, and it's just like, man, it's just it's a great song, right? It's great music. And so like, let's embrace it. Isn't it awesome that some group of artists created that? Like, let's enjoy it.
Yeah, I'd love to go behind the scenes or the curtain with that band and just see how they create. You know what I mean? Like get like that fly on the wall kind of insight into that, you know, because it's just so interesting the way their songs come together. But getting back to Gillsaw, man, we've covered the EP in a lot of ways. You know, we've touched heavily on Risen, but we haven't yet talked about the music video concept.
Yeah.
So you want to get into that?
Yeah, I enjoy making videos. And so now I'm not saying that, you know, I don't have a background in video creation or any of that, right? So this is just, I try to do everything from an artistic standpoint of creating something that I enjoy. So if I can use that as my center, and then other people along the way say that, hey, they also enjoy that, then like, killer, awesome, that's amazing, right? And so I try to do it for creating a video or a song or a concept that I enjoy as a starting spot.
Right.
So with Risen, with the video, I wanted it to be dark. I wanted it to be make you feel slightly uncomfortable, right? And so, funny story. So the way that that video was filmed, I have my home. I'm in my home studio here, and it's actually a shed, for lack of a better term, right? That I had built on my property. And then right beside this is my garden shed. It's this old cedar shed that I have, like my lawnmower and all that shit in there, right? And it's full of cobwebs and just like it's really cryptic in there, right? Because it's just got lawnmowers and stuff. So I was like, I'm filming a lot of Risen in the shed. So I pulled out all the stuff. I threw on some, like, you know, lights and whatever else, and like blacked out all the windows in the shed. And there, like I said, there's legit cobwebs. Like everything you see in there is like legit. It wasn't and just it created this really eerie visual, and I was like, oh, I love this. And then I threw a bunch of like filtering and you know, different effects on top of it to really make it feel just uneasy. And then you can do things with like speeding up and slowing down the different parts and whatnot. And so just had a lot of fun with it because I want it to be slightly a horror show in a video. And so yeah, so that was a lot of fun. And then actually for the next song, Siren Comes, I just finished, well, I'm 95% finished with the video for that one. And there's a part in that song where Risen comes back into play. And so I was like, all right, I need to do another shot with Risen.
Right.
And so I actually did a shot with Risen where I've got like candles burning, and, you know, he's kind of like on the floor, and it ended up being like really cryptic as well. And so I'm like, oh, this is perfect, right? It just is like unsettling. And so now most of for that video is it's supposed to be a blend of like really a pretty soft enchanting type, right? Because this is the siren. And so she bought some video footage of a lady actually in Russia who is like underwater, right? And so it's like really just like attractive flowing type, right? And then like a smash of like Risen that comes into there. And so it's really solid juxtaposition of those two ideas. And so it's off-putting and unsettling. And then for the Risen video, almost all of the footage for that I filmed myself. And so like you'll see some parts in there where there's these vines, right? And you see these vines moving. Those are vines that I have along one of my back walls of my property. And so I've just kind of filmed through those. And then I did like a lot of just saturation on them to make it just really kind of pop in a black and white standpoint. There's a segment on there where there's a rat. You'll see a rat that's running back and forth. That I have security cameras around my property. And that was actually a rat that was running on one of my my fence beams in the security camera. I was like, that is perfect. I'm going to go and pull that into this video. So I thought,
thanks, Mother Nature.
Yeah, that's exactly it, man. Like most of Risen was filmed like here at my house, right? And so, but again, that's letting that creative process flow. Seeing a security footage camera of a rat saying like, I think I can pull that into a music video, right? That's fun to me. Like, let's let that flow. So anyway, I'm excited. I'm excited for, if you've liked the teasers to this point, then you definitely will like the video because it just takes those teasers and throws it on steroids. So.
Yeah, like I dude, I'm so excited for that, especially now, you know, because you're kind of making me think of like how those old Nine Inch Nails music videos used to be, you know.
That's right.
You know the Perfect Drug music video, or like the very first song I ever heard from them was actually Closer.
Yeah,
and I remember seeing the video for that. And I'm just like sitting there going, "What the hell is this?" You know, I'm like, I'm unsettled, but I can't. Yeah.
The spinning, right?
Where I'm unsettled, but I can't. Yeah.
I know, man.
Couldn't turn my eyes away from it, and I'm just like, I'm not disgusted. I'm not like going, I'm going to turn this off. Like, I want to see how it unfolds, but I'm also uncomfortable. You know?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly what I'm trying to capture with this.
Yeah.
And the other thing for me is like, I'm a big fan of Tool. And if you look at some of Tool's visuals and their videos, like, man, shit, most of them have nothing to do with the song. It's just like this like journey of uneasiness. And I love that. And their videos are never about them as a band, right? You don't see
Exactly.
Maynard in their videos because it's not about that. It's about the artistic expression. And that's where, for at least the first 2 videos, the only time that I show up in the videos is actually as Risen, right? Because like, it's not about me, it's about the idea of Gillsaw. And so that's really what I'm trying to push. A lot of bands they create a band for selfish exposure, right? And so they're like, okay, I have a band, so let's do a bunch of video shoots of me and a bunch of, photographs of me, and like I want to be the face of it. Like, that's not what this is. I want it to be an idea. I want it to be like an experience, and that's what Gillsaw is. And so anyway, hopefully that comes across in the videos.
No, I think it will, and I love the fact that you kind of take vanity out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you're exactly right. Like, a lot of artists are wanting to be the center of attention of like. So I'm not saying that performance video for a music video, the band playing their instruments and all that is bad or wrong.
Nope,
it's
not at all. Nope.
But I'm just saying that, to your point, that sometimes it can look, and like, especially when the band's open about like, oh, we want it to be about us, that could come across in the video as like very vain. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And so you're exactly right with Tool. They've never featured themselves in any of their music videos, and it wasn't until Maynard started A Perfect Circle where there was videos of the band.
Correct.
Yep. But that you can even tell, even with that it wasn't about the band being in the videos, though.
That's right.
Like for Judith or for Three Libras or whatever. Like, yeah, they're in it, but it's a narrative, and there's a point to them being in there, and so. Dude,
it's funny. Like Judith is. Sorry, you touched on something. I just got to call this out. There's a moment in the Judith video where the bass player, she's rocking, right? And then there's like a slight pause, and she throws her hair up into a bun, and then she
her hair up. Yep.
You know what I'm talking about? And I'm just like, dude, that is so bad. Exactly. Because there's a couple things with that. Was like, well, I think the prevailing thing is, where are the women at in metal? Because they exist, right? Like, I love it. Like, I love women. I remember White Zombie back in the day, where their bass player was a female, and I saw them live in concert, and I was like, she is amazing. Like, she crushes it, right? And so, like, and me being a drummer, there's very few female drummers, and like, let's break that stigma, man. Like, I think that women can absolutely crush these instruments, and I love to see women in the metal community and the heavy music community like embracing that. Like, come on in, welcome to the tribe, let's go. Right.
Some examples of that, man, is like an artist that I wasn't always into, but I really appreciate now, especially since they've been back, is Kitty. They put out
a broke up.
Kitty.
Oh yeah.
Remember them? They put out a pretty great album last year, I think it was, and I loved it. And then you've got Tatiana from Ginger, and you've got
badass.
You got Christina from Lacuna Coil, and stuff like that, so they're there, but your point is like the highlight on them is still very sparse. It's almost like, oh, they can't jam as hard as a man, or they can't write something like a man. It's like, well, they don't need to, and they shouldn't have to,
That's exactly it. And the other thing is like, I saw this band. They were, oh man, Blackwater Holy Night. They are I
think I've heard the name.
They're kind of a black metal type of band, and it's an all-female band. And I can't remember who they were opening. Oh, they're actually opening for this band right here, All Them Witches. And
I know them. Yeah.
And so I went and I saw them, and I was captivated by them. Like, their sound was amazing, and their drummer was amazing, and so it's like, I wish that we as a community did a better job of showcasing that. I think we do a good job of showcasing it when the women are attractive, right? Like, that's easy to do, but like, it should be about the music first, right? And so, so anyway, like, not to soapbox too much on that, but just to go back to that where she pulls her hair up into a bun and she just like slams on the bass. I'm like, I love that part of that video.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of people's favorite part of that video.
Yeah,
because it's like, oh, she's like so seamlessly just does that and right back to it.
Right, like,
you know,
just kind of like, oh, this is where the shit gets really intense, right?
yeah.
Bam. And so, anyway,
give me 1 second, Joel. My kid's climbing.
Yeah, no worries, brother.
All right. Sorry about that.
No problem.
He's a climber, man. This kid, like all day, he would. I wouldn't be surprised if he rock climbs. You know, he's all over the place.
Kids will keep you on your toes, brother. That is for sure.
Yeah, man. For sure. So before we start wrapping up, man, so we've covered a lot of ground for Gillsaw, what's coming. What else, man, would you like to kind of touch on as far as Gillsaw goes that hasn't yet?
You know, I think the thing I will say is the early support means a lot, right? Like, especially you know, a new creative venture. I'm really focused on this as a standalone venture. And so what that means is there's no embedded base that I'm building on top of, right? So everything is really grassroots from the bottom up. And so, you know, just people can engage, right? Like, man, I love when I see people posting comments or questions or, you know, forwarding different posts or following or whatever. It means a lot being kind of new at this. And really, like I said, my goal is not fame and fortune. My goal is to find the tribe, right? And so, and the only way I do that is if more people know that this exists. And so, so I appreciate all that early support from you and others of really kind of putting a light on what it is that I'm doing here. And so I just appreciate that immensely. Lots of gratitude for that. So.
Yeah, man, that's what I'm here for. And I reached out to you, as far as I remember, on Instagram, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, and it was from the there's a Facebook, or not Facebook, but the Instagram little reel or story that I scrolled onto. That I'm sitting there, I'm like looking at, kind of listening. I'm like, oh, interesting. And so I'm like, okay, or something to do with looking for like podcasts and stuff too.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm reaching out and I'm going to see where this goes. And he goes, I want to find those artists that are just something different, you know, because I want that variety on the podcast. And I want to dig as deep as I could go, you know, into that kind of underground kind of DIY, you know, side of music. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate the reach out. Love what you're doing with the podcast. I'm definitely looking forward to your Gravity Kills interview. You know, they were definitely an early influence mine. Great band. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing that. And so, yeah, appreciate it all, buddy.
Yeah, no problem, man. And to wrap up, I got some rapid fire questions that I want to just send your way. Stole one of these from JP. And the first of which is going to be for Gillsaw. If you could describe the music or even the image of the band as a food or a drink, what would you choose?
Definitely some sort of smoothie with like a mix of vegetables, fruit, and probably meat products, right? Where it's like, I don't know exactly what it is that I'm consuming, and it's a mix of a bunch of things, and I think I like it, but I'm not totally sure. So, yeah, I think that would be it.
So something that's kind of like an undefined kind of
thing. That's right. Yeah. Consistency out of a blender. So
yeah, I think that fits perfectly. And then let's touch on like kind of like the horror sci-fi aspect that, you know, the Gillsaw, you know, has. And what would you say would be an influence on the music as far as a film? Like, what could you take?
You know, there's two films that come to mind. One was, and this actually just came up in a chat I was having yesterday. There was a horror show called The Lighthouse, and with William Dafoe, and I can't remember who else was.
Oh, it was it Willem Dafoe and the guy from Twilight, wasn't it?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
I watched that. Yeah,
yes. It's black and white, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah. So there's some of that where I think that has like subconsciously come into my ideas behind the album. But then also I've got to harken back to The Crow with Brandon Lee.
So
Like,
good,
dude, it's such an incredible movie,
so good.
and the soundtrack was incredible, the visuals were incredible, the acting was incredible, the story was incredible, this like avenging wrongs, right? And
Mhm.
so I think that probably a lot of that is influencing what it is that I'm putting together. So
No, dude, those are perfect picks for that, man. I just to touch on the Crow a little bit, man. Like, so last year, my wife and I we went to the state fair in Oregon where we live, and I decided that I wanted to check out the reboot film
uh,
for it. Right. So we both like Bill Skarsgård. We think he's a great
sure,
actor.
he's a great actor. Yeah.
And so, because the trailer made it look like it would be more intense, more octane kind of action,
Yeah.
dark and everything. And it was dark. It had some action, but it was also kind of, it felt kind of like empty space between things happening that really didn't, at least to me and to my wife, kind of lend any purpose to the film. And it's almost like who was behind writing it and filming it and everything, they just kind of missed kind of the point of the original film. And the thing is, anymore these days, there's such a lack of original storytelling in film anymore, right? There's so many remakes, reboots, just like franchises out there. Of course, there's some good ones, but it's just when are we going to get back to writing those original stories, doing creative storytelling and not being so focused on making that dollar,
No, I agree.
and getting something out fast,
Could not agree more.
That's why the new Crow movie just to me failed so miserably, man. It's like the cast was fine, but just the script and just, man, I walked out of that movie after it ended just kind of, I was a little bit angry.
Yeah.
For having seen it, like that was a waste of my time.
So when I saw that they were doing a remake of The Crow, my initial reaction was, "Oh man, that's awesome! I can't wait to see it." It followed quickly by, "Why are they remaking that movie? It was perfect the first time through. Like, what is it that they need to do differently?" And so it quickly turned to skepticism, and to the point where I was like, "I really hope that this movie doesn't suck. I'm probably not going to see it, but I hope it doesn't suck." And then I saw all the reviews saying, "Oh, this movie sucks." And I was like, why did they do this movie, man? Like, why? Because like the original was perfect. And so, so not to get too much on a high horse, but I'm refusing to watch that movie. I will not allow that pollution to enter my brain at all. So
yeah, it's 2 hours of film that I wish I didn't see.
Yeah. Maybe it would be different had you not seen the original, right? When you just be like, oh, interesting movie.
Yeah.
That first movie to me was about as close to perfection as you can have in movie making. And so
I couldn't agree more. I told my wife to watch it before we seen the remake. And she even said what you just said to me. She's like, I kind of wish I didn't watch the original like you told me to, because she's like, what the hell was even that remake that we just saw?
Yeah, that's
exactly I'm so sorry that I had us do this.
You did.
That's my bad.
That's my bad.
Yeah. But anyways, dude, great time with you chatting about Gillsaw and everything that we've touched on. In closing, man, is there anything else that you'd want to divulge for Gillsaw, or do you want to keep it under your hat, so to speak?
No, I think the only other thing is the second single will be coming out in early February, and so once Risen drops next Friday, the 10th, then I'll give that a little bit of space. But probably a week after that drops, maybe a little less, I'll start doing the push for Siren Comes as the follow-up single. And so looking forward to that. We'll see what kind of reaction that one gets. But yeah, appreciate the support from you, from the community. Looking forward to chatting with JT next week. So thanks for that connection. Yeah, man, this is like really important conversations to have about mental health and music and creativity. And so I appreciate you bringing this all to light on your program.
Yeah. It's all been my pleasure, man. That's the whole reason I reached out to you. And before I go off air, I'm going to keep you for another couple of minutes when we go off air here. But go ahead and let people know where they could find you on the socials and everything.
I think all of my socials are at Gillsaw Band. And so mostly I'm most active on Facebook. That seems to be the prevailing place now. And then YouTube are the two primary. And then I do a little bit on Instagram. TikTok doesn't like me, and that's fine. I guess I don't like TikTok either.
I hate TikTok.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. Like, I know it's a inevitability that I'll have to figure out something there, but I'm just not in a hurry. So really it's those three platforms, and all of those are at Gillsaw Band, or you can go to the website, which is gillsaw.com.
All righty. Well, everybody, again, this has been Joel from Gillsaw that I've talked with today. And just in case you missed it, Risen debuts on January 10th, along with the music video for it to accompany it. Please check it out when it drops. It's a great, great song. I really love it. I think it's going to scratch that itch, especially for those industrial fans that missed that sound of the late 80s, early 90s, as we touched on here. And I'm going to pull you back on, Joel, probably when that new single comes out after Risen, and promote that as well. So look forward to another DM either on Facebook or Instagram. The other one or both. And yeah, man, thanks for coming on. It's been great.
Thanks for having me, man. Anytime. I'll be back anytime you want me to. Appreciate it.
All right. See you later, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.